I really hope I'm right and that this video doesn't age like rotten milk. But we'll see. We'll see. Hello, this is Daniel Mart, and this week I kind of want to discuss something that I've been seeing a lot that kind of came out of nowhere in the past 2 weeks, to be honest, and I've been very confused about the reaction to it, and that is actually Rachel Zegler. Those who don't know who Rachel Zegler is, she is currently the new Snow White. She's going to be in the new Snow White movie. She was in West Side Story from a few years back, and that's literally it for her filmography. She has about 3 or 4 other projects that she has in the works right now, aside from Snow White, but really West Side Story and Snow White are the only things she's known for, and even then, West Side Story is the only thing that's actually been out. And in the past 2 weeks, out of nowhere, in my opinion, or like very randomly, she's just blown up, and people seem to have a very negative perception of her. And in this video, I am going to try to defend her because I want to be controversial. But honestly, I do think that the controversy behind her is being blown out of proportion by a lot, and it seems kind of unfair to her. I'm going to be taking this in 2 different ways. I'm going to be taking this with stuff that I don't think is her fault at all, that people are just attacking her just because they want to attack her. And I feel like that part I could more easily defend because literally has nothing to do with her. And then the second part is the stuff that does have to do with her and why the people are actually angry at her, why people have a reason to be angry at her, and then my thoughts on it. So those are the 2 points I'm going to go with.
I also want to say this very fast because I realized I didn't mention it beforehand, but I'm not a huge fan of hers per se. Like, I did like her in West Side Story, don't get me wrong, and I think she did a good job in that movie. But honestly, Ariana DeBose, who won the Oscar for that movie, by the way, or I forget his name right now, but the guy who portrayed her boyfriend, I thought they did a way better job. They carry that movie. I thought there was so much more going on in that movie that I wasn't just solely focused on her. So I think she did a good job, but again, one performance isn't going to make me a fan, if you know what I mean.
So I'm going to start off with the stuff that I don't think she should get hated on, why people are attacking her for no reason, and all this stuff. And a lot of it really, again, like I said, isn't Rachel Zegler's fault. It's more so Disney, the company's fault. And because Rachel Zegler happens to be in the movie, she, in turn, is getting hate because of it. And the 2 major things I'm looking at that I've seen people blame her for, which, again, I don't understand why, it's the casting of the dwarves in the movie and then the casting of herself as Snow White. Now, I think the dwarves is very easy. Like, she had nothing to do with the casting of the dwarves. So I don't know why she, by proxy, is getting hate for it. That's literally a Disney thing. I'll be honest, the fact that they didn't cast little people in those roles, I think they only have like 1 little person actor in the movie, and the other 6 characters are normal sized. I'm not sure if I'm wording that correctly, but you know. And then I think what Disney said, oh, they're not dwarves, they're magical people, magical folks, or some bullshit like that. I'm like, the fuck? It's right there in the name, Snow White and the 7 Dwarves, and you know, little people don't get that much roles in films as is. So the one role they should get, now you're taking that away from them. And I know there's a huge thing with Peter Dinklage. He got in the mix, and how there's a thing where Peter Dinklage said, oh, you shouldn't cast little people in this because it's demeaning to us or some bullshit like that. But I know a lot of, from what I've seen online, a lot of little people actors have said, no, what the fuck are you saying, Peter Dinklage, the hell? But for whatever reason, Rachel Zegler is also getting hate because she's in the movie, and they just want to attach controversy to her. Like, and I've seen a lot of people say, oh, she should call out the fact that they didn't cast little people. I'm like, should she? I mean, like, I'll be honest, it'd be nice, but I don't think per se it's her responsibility. And my main argument for honestly a lot of stuff that I'm about to say in both sections, it's this: she got hired to do a role in a movie. It's not her fault at that point. She's just doing her job as an actress in regards to the movie. I'll touch that point in some other points, but still, I think that's the main thing with me and Rachel Zegler when it comes to this. With a lot of the controversy, she got hired to do a movie, and she's doing her part for the movie. I don't understand the criticism behind it. For this, with the little people, again, she didn't cast the people, she didn't cast the actors to be the dwarves. She had no responsibility in that, so I don't understand the hate for it. Now, the other part that I also don't think is her fault is that she herself was cast in Snow White. And I know this may seem kind of ironic or hypocritical. Oh, It's in the title, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Why does it apply to the Seven Dwarfs and not Snow White? And I actually think that Rachel Zegler herself said a pretty, I'm not going to say compelling because it's not compelling, but she did give an argument, which is like a no duh argument, which is I don't think it's that compelling, but it's like Snow White exists in Spanish culture as well. It's called Blanca Nieve. And honestly, aside from the actual line that her skin was pale as snow, nothing about Snow White really dictates that she needs to be white, aside from the fact that it says her skin was pale as snow. But even then, there's nothing like racially past that says, oh, she needs to be white, aside from that one line. And who cares? Like, personally, I don't care. Now, I did think about this. I do think that if they had cast like a white Hispanic actress like Ana de Armas, first name I could think of, which kind of sucks because I don't like her as an actress, but besides the point. Also, I think she'd be too old for this role anyways, because she's like in her 30s. But, we're going to go with it. But let's say they would have cast Ana de Armas in this role. Would there still be controversy? I don't know. Now that I'm using Ana de Armas now as well, there's a whole thing with Marilyn Monroe where they were saying, oh, she should be played by a white actress, and then Ana de Armas is a Cuban-American actress, if I'm not mistaken. And there's still controversies on that. Honestly, there's a lot of controversies surrounding Blonde to begin with, but that was one of them. And there was a whole thing there too, like, oh, but she's still white. She's white passing, so it counts. But then there's a whole thing with the accent, so I don't know, because, that's one of those things I thought. I really don't know, would it be better if had they cast a white Hispanic or not? Or maybe just go for a straight up white person for the role. In my opinion, I don't necessarily think it matters. And again, I don't think this is something that Rachel Zegler should be blamed for. She just accepted the part. And I'm sorry, but are you really gonna... How can you blame someone, an up-and-coming actress, not to accept that part, Snow White, in Disney's next big remake, regardless of how you feel about the remakes? That's still a very notable role, you know what I mean? You say whatever you want about the remakes, how bad they are, but generally speaking, you could say that the remakes still have some decent performances, generally speaking. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like the Beauty and the Beast remake, which I don't really get why, because I really enjoyed it. Emma Watson, I still think, gave a really good performance. Granted, I'm also in the minority for that one, because people just really like to hate on that movie for some reason. I don't blame her for taking the role. It's one of those things like why are you hating on her for being cast when you should be hating on Disney for casting her? If that's my logic for it. And also, again, she's an up-and-coming actress. Again, is she not going to take the role? It's one of those things, if this was like maybe Princess and the Frog, where the race of the character actually mattered within the context of the story, then yes, you could get mad. To be honest, if they try to cast anything that's not black in Princess of the Frog, people will get mad regardless. I think in that case, then you could be mad for her taking the role. But again, aside from the fact that you only have one line that references her skin color, who cares? And again, Blanca Nieve is a thing in Spanish culture. That's really all I have to say in regards to that. I don't understand why she's getting hate on both for her getting cast in the project, because she auditioned. That's really all she has to get blamed for. She auditioned. It's not technically her fault she got the parts. It just means she was the best actress for the job. And then I really don't understand why she's getting hate for the casting of the dwarves / little people, or lack thereof. At that one, I really befuddles me. So the next thing I want to talk about is all the controversy surrounding her that I actually do understand. Now, in the past couple months, and it has to be months ago because we're currently on strike. I don't think she would break SAG-AFTRA rules during a strike. I don't think. So I assume this had to happen a couple months ago. So a few months ago, I guess while promoting the film, she had made some unflattering comments, or just comments that people found it weird. It's not that I don't get it. I just think it's being blown out of proportion, if I'm being completely honest. There's some comments about how the romantic lead, the guy who plays the prince, could be written out of the script, or written out of the film, or edited out of the film, better said. How this is a movie about feminism, and how it's about the girl going for what she believes, or something like that. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. That was literally my reaction. Okay, cool. Like, the guy could be cut. Cool. It's a film that wants to show feminism, and about wanting women to stand up for themselves and go for what they want. Okay, cool, whatever. I see those comments, I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. It is what it is. And maybe to a certain degree, it's also because I just don't care for Snow White, the Snow White remake, because I just don't care for most of these remakes, especially after Lion King. But I really didn't find anything offensive of those comments either. But the internet sure as shit found everything to be offended about with those comments. And we have a shirt change. So yeah, very fast, what happened was that for whatever reason, my camera just kind of cut off after a while. It was still recording, but when I went to edit it, it was just like black. So I don't know what happened there, but onto it. So I'm basically going to touch upon every single comment one by one and discuss my thought process behind each one. I've already alluded to the first one that I want to mention, and that's basically the fact that the guy who portrays the prince, he could be cut out. I saw the interview where she stated that, and I understand the way she kind of came off. It kind of does seem kind of annoying. I'm not gonna lie, like even her tone of voice is annoying. I'm not gonna deny that. But if the princess cut out the film, that's not her fault. It's not her fault if Disney or the writer for this film wrote a movie where one of the characters could be completely cut out from the film, could be completely edited out from the film. That is literally not her fault at all. Just like the situation with the dwarves, she didn't write the movie. She didn't cast the movie. She didn't direct. She didn't do the cinematography. All she did was act in the movie. So if an entire character could be taken out through editing, that is not her fault. That is the writer's fault for not writing a character that matters within the context of the film. And to kind of come adjacent to that with the whole prince, there were some comments that she did make where in regards to how she thought that the prince in the original movie was kind of a creeper. He was. Let's be honest, he was. He kissed a sleeping girl, after she took the poisoned apple and passed out. And that's always been a source of controversy even with the original film. Like, oh, he's just gonna go there and kiss a sleeping girl. It's like the same thing with Sleeping Beauty. Oh, this prince is just gonna come in here and kiss a sleeping girl. And in this case, just because seven dwarves, or I guess in the case of this film, 7 magical beings told him, hey, you need to kiss this girl to wake her up. Like, that's always been a controversy even with the original Snow White. So now her calling the prince a creeper, and I don't understand. That's always been a controversy with the original movie, but now people are saying, oh no, it's all right. And Rachel Zegler is wrong for saying that. Like, I'm honestly lost on the logic behind it, if I'm being honest. Look, it's not her fault that they wrote a character that they could probably literally take out from the film. If it's the way she's wording it, it's not her fault. She didn't write the film. That is not her fault. And just the prince as a character as a whole, he's a creep. I don't know why people are all of a sudden denying that when they've been saying that for X amount of years. In fact, when this Snow White remake was first in development, that was actually one of the main concerns. How are they going to portray the prince? The logic in it is just now really confusing me, and I don't really understand why there's all of a sudden this disconnect when this particular conversation has always been a point of discussion when it comes to Snow White. Now, the next thing I also want to touch upon, which I've already touched upon it briefly, was the whole feminism angle. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a feminist. Now, I do believe in women's rights, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to call myself a feminist because there's like 20 different interpretations of what it means to be a feminist any given day. I believe women should have rights, and that's really simple as that. Women equality, women should have rights, yes. I mean, that's, very basic human logic. Everybody should have their rights. And the main problem that a lot of people seem to have with this one, and to a certain degree, I will admit, I do understand where they're coming from, don't get me wrong, but it's the fact that people are saying that, oh, Rachel Zegler is a fake feminist because of the way she wants to talk about the movie, because she's saying that, oh, they want to give this certain drive for Snow White that wasn't there in the original story. Some of the arguments for that is like, oh, she does have drive. She wants to live with the dwarves in their cottage, and she's like basically their mother. And people are taking issues with that. And okay, here's the thing, and I do agree with this. If you as a woman, you want to be a mother and that is your goal in life, that's just as valid as wanting to be a CEO of a company. Both of them are equally feminist. So I do agree with that. And I do understand why her comments are kind of like triggering people to, don't get me wrong, I do fully understand it. But at the same time, that's how she believes. There's nothing that, from what I've seen at least, there's nothing that makes me think or say, or I've seen her that demeans people who want to be mothers or who just want to be a caretaker. There's nothing in it that shows that. She just seems to have one certain belief in feminism. Now, whether that's good or bad, I'm not going to really get into that too deeply, but that's what she believes. And at the end of the day, her point in this whole thing is that she does want to inspire women. Now, again, she could be doing it in the wrong way, more than likely true, but her heart is still in the right place at the end of it. With her comments, there's nothing really malicious about it. So again, I don't really understand why there's that controversy behind it to such a degree that it is, or at least with the amount of vitriol that there is with it. Again, that's kind of confusing for me, and I just don't get it. And with that regard, I just don't really get it. Granted, it could just be the fact I'm a guy, so I don't connect with that particular topic as in depth. I'll completely accept. I feel like a lot of it's also just being taken out of context to a certain degree. That's just me, my opinion, looking at it. Now, the next thing I wanted to discuss is like how she actually views the movie per se. I've already kind of touched upon it with how she views Snow White and the Prince, but there's also been a lot of like hoopla, so to speak, by the fact that she hasn't seen the original movie, or she's only seen it one time because it was scary back when she saw it when she was like, what, 5 or 6 years old, and she's 22 right now, so she was probably like 2021 when they were making this movie. And I'm like, yeah, so she saw the movie one time, so what? Like, literally, so what? Like, that was literally my reaction, like, so who gives a shit if she's only seen the movie one time? And I'm being completely serious, like, who cares? Like, I'm surprised that that's such another major sticking point for people. Like, oh my gosh, she's only seen the movie one time, what the hell, blah blah blah. I'm like, yo, chill the fuck out. Like, first off, also, she possibly, since the point she got cast, she probably has seen the movie a couple more times. There's nothing that I've seen, at least, that says, oh, she's only ever seen the movie that one time. And also, her logic for having not watched the movie anymore, or having only watched that movie one time, honestly kind of makes sense for her 5 or 6 year old brain when she first watched it, and that's that it was scary. And let's be honest, the first Snow White does have its scary moments. The whole thing with the witch, poisoning an apple, the way the witch dies, that, even the mirror, mirror on the wall scene, that is pretty scary imagery for a child. And, I'm assuming she saw this when she was like 5 or 6 or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if, she never wanted to see the movie after that. Also, she's only 2 years younger than me. I'm 24. She's 22. Let's be honest, she was probably addicted to like Renaissance movies or the early 2000s movies. So she was probably more than likely watching Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, which also has its remake coming out right now, or Emperor's New Groove, or Chicken Little, which is a really bad movie, but that's the only thing that comes up to my mind, or any Pixar movie. Like, even me, I personally I didn't grow up on the classic Disney. I didn't grow up on Snow White or Bambi, or like I'll be honest, I haven't even seen Bambi, if I'm being honest. I've seen the one iconic, shot scene of the mother dying, but I've never seen Bambi, if I'm being honest. So I'm not surprised that she's only seen the movie one time. Like, I don't even remember when the last time I saw Snow White was. It had to be a few years ago, to be honest. And then again, I'm pretty sure as her duty as an actor, she probably has seen the movie a couple more times since then. I think that will make sense. Now, if she's never seen the movie, again, aside from that one time, then there is kind of a problem. And the one thing with that too is that, so like, oh, you're gonna give it to an actress who isn't a big fan of the first movie? Who cares? Like, that's how movies are, that's how remakes are made. You don't necessarily have to be a fan of something to be cast in a remake or in a franchise or in a series. Now, of course, it would be nice, don't get me wrong, it would be nice if she preferably was a fan of Snow White, but I don't think that's the end all be all. And again, her being cast in the film isn't her fault. It's not her fault she gave a good audition or she has a good agent or whatever. If that's the case, blame Disney for casting her. Don't blame her for accepting a role. Now, I do want to discuss some other stuff I have heard about Rachel Zegler, more so her on-set behavior, where that's where I'm kind of, okay, this is where I kind of see, this is why I personally don't like Rachel Zegler, or why I wouldn't like Rachel Zegler. And I think these spots, definitely, like, if you really want to hate on her for this. Like, just do not like her for that. Everything else, I think, either A, again, not her fault, blown out of proportion. Simple as that. But I think these next couple things, I understand. Like, and even me, myself, I don't like the fact that she's doing this. And I guess during Snow White, Mark Webb is directing this movie. I actually wasn't even aware that Mark Webb was directing this movie till I found out about all of this that's going on right now. And for those who don't know who Mark Webb is, he is the director of Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2. However you feel about those movies, it is what it is. I like the first one. Not a big fan of the second one. And I guess at some point during this movie, Snow White, she complained to Mark Webb about some of his prior films, which I assume would have to include both Spider-Man movies as well as many of his other films that he's done. And I think at that point, that does seem kind of bad on her. That's one of those things. You get hired to do a job. Don't complain about who you're working with unless there's something really drastic going on. Look, if Mark Webb was unprofessional or he was, just acting sus or just a bad person to deal with, then in that case, I understand why you're complaining. But if you're just complaining about this guy's prior filmography, not the best time to bring it up, if I'm being honest. It's like, I feel like there's a time and place to discuss that, and on set isn't the time to discuss it. Also, apparently, she did want to have certain aspects of her character rewritten or certain aspects of the story rewritten. I guess in that case, I understand why people will complain, and maybe that could tie into the whole thing with the prince being basically excommunicado, John Wick term, excommunicado from the film. Like, again, in those cases, I do understand why there will be hate. And personally, if that is true, I don't like the fact that she's doing that. And at that point, I'm like, okay, Rachel, calm the fuck down. I'm not going to defend that kind of behavior. If what they're saying is true, what comments she made towards Mark Webb and some of the writing edits that she wished, which I'm not even sure, from what I've seen, I'm not sure if they did happen or didn't happen. That I'm not sure about. But I think at those points, like, Rachel, calm down. You got hired to do a role, do your job. Now, that being said, you can give your opinion on what your character believes or thinks or what you think your character should do, X, Y, and Z. But don't make it to the point where you have to do this or you're not going to do the scene, if that makes sense. Unless it's like something very drastic, like dangerous. At that point, I understand. Like if it's like a Kill Bill, Quentin Tarantino, Uma Thurman situation where Uma Thurman tried to put her foot down and Tarantino was like, no, fuck off. At that point, I can understand why you're complaining. But if it's like some bullshit thing, like, it's honestly, if that's the case, she would need to pick her battles. And right now, from what I'm seeing, the battles she picked weren't the best ones to go against, essentially. So, yeah, that's basically my thoughts on the whole Rachel Zegler situation. Again, I think the majority of the hate she's getting, either A, isn't her fault or is being blown way out of proportion for no reason. Again, I have discussed some of the stuff that I personally saw that I don't like. So it's not like, again, I'm not a huge fan of Rachel Zegler as is. I've only ever seen her in West Side Story, and that's really about it. I really don't know anything about her. It's just that everything's come out in the past 2 weeks out of goddamn nowhere. I don't know why, but it has. I just kind of wanted to give my opinions on it, and again, I just felt like a lot of this stuff, do not understand why she's getting so much hate for it. Again, just seems blown out of proportion. Look, at the end of the day, she's this hotshot actress who, again, just came out of West Side Story, came out of Shazam. She's doing Snow White. She's gonna be in the Hunger Games prequel. She's an actress on the rise, and she's 22. She was 18, 19 when she officially entered this industry. She has a YouTube channel. She started off as a YouTuber, essentially as a cover YouTube artist, if I'm not mistaken. So these past 5 to 7 years have been such a drastic change for her. I don't blame her for all of a sudden getting this ego, if I'm being honest. Like, I get it. Why she would all of a sudden have this ego. But I don't think it's gonna last. I think right now she is kind of power tripping, so to speak, if that's the word you want to use. But I don't see it lasting that long. I do think there will be a point, and maybe, honestly, I do think Snow White will be this point, given how all the reception already is for it. But I do think there is going to be a point where she either A, mellows out, and she learns about the industry and really accepts the industry, so to speak, and learns how to live within the industry and, just becomes another regular movie star. And I really hope that's the trajectory she ends up going in. So she could either do that or just have her ego up the ass afterwards and never return, essentially, so to speak. And at that point, if she just continues being an egomaniac, okay, then we could continue hating on her. But right now, I think she's a naive 22-year-old actress who started off doing YouTube videos. Her first film was a Steven Spielberg movie, nominated for Best Picture, a remake of another Best Picture winner, went on to do Shazam, a DC movie, superhero movie. That's literally her second film ever. Goes on to do a Disney remake of the first animated movie ever, full-length animated movie ever. And then from here, she's going to do a Hunger Games prequel, and I forget what else she has on the books. She has like 4 or 5 more other things in line. I get it. I get why she's kind of power tripping, but I don't think it's going to last. give it 2 more years. Give it till after Snow White comes out, which I think comes out, what, next year? Yeah. If she still acts like this after Snow White, go ahead, be my guest, hate on her. I just think she's just naive child, thrown into the industry, thrown into the wolves, and just trying to survive. So yeah, that's basically it for now. Those are my thoughts on it. What do you guys think? I know I took a very controversial stance on this. I can't wait to see the comments, if anybody even watches this goddamn video. That's the other thing. So yeah, that's basically it for now. What are your thoughts on it? Comment all that down below, let me know. And yeah, this is Daniel Mart, signing off.